Hey, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Alison Shangana. I'm at CAF, and I'm the head of research and market intelligence. And I'm presenting our Labor of Love, which is our 2020 Housing Finance in Africa Yearbook, which we have just completed, and today you are present for its launch into the world. We're very proud of this publication. So I'm going to take this opportunity today just to very quickly to tell you about the publication and why it's unique, and to direct you to our website. It's now available online, the entire publication for free to download. So the 2020 yearbook is part of a long tradition, which is now 11 years old. This is the 11th edition of the publication. And as we have been evolving over the years, we've improved the depth and the scope of the document, of the publication. It's CAF's flagship. And what it is a collection of country profiles of housing finance markets across Africa. So it's an up-to-date review of the practice and the developments in housing finance, and delivery. So it's published every year, and therefore it provides a very up-to-date picture of what's happening in the country, putting housing and housing finance in the context of the economy within the country and the market. I think what's unique about this document, since I've been working on it, it's now my third yearbook that I've worked on, is that this is a massive collaborative effort. We could have one organization simply research and publish the entire document, but we don't. What we do is we advertise for yearbook authors and researchers through an open process, and we select authors for each country. No author writes more than 2 countries, and we prioritize authors who are located in country so that they can do the research on the ground. When we began in 2010, we only covered 15 countries, and now we do all 55 countries in Africa. We publish the yearbook simultaneously. Today it is available online entirely in French and entirely in English, which is a massive undertaking. We're also very proud this year that we had almost a third of the profiles originally written in French and then translated into English for the English publication. So this improves the quality, as a number of the authors were more comfortable writing in French. And I think that makes it a truly bilingual document. In addition, we also have the Mozambique profile available in Portuguese, originally written in Portuguese. And so what we have is a collaborative effort of 45 different contributors. 45 different authors across the continent, some of them international, who have been researching these profiles over the last 2 months and have gone through a rigorous editing process to have their submissions within the yearbook. And you'll see those authors' names at the top of each of the profiles. So what this process does is it creates this massive team, this community of practice of housing finance experts across the country. And some of those who took part in this year's yearbook have written for us previously, and some were new to this process. And I want to welcome them as well, because they've all been invited to this launch, and I'm sure a number of them are online right now. So if you are, please, in the chat, introduce yourself, tell us your name, which country you wrote for. It would be fantastic to see everybody's cooperation and presence here. Because of the reality of this year and the uniqueness of 2020, when we designed this year's yearbook, we thought very hard about the 2020 context and how we needed to acknowledge that and bring that into the discussion. You're well aware that COVID-19, we've now spoken about that today and yesterday, has exposed and exacerbated the state of disaster that a number of households in Africa currently live in. And with the lockdowns, it's created an economic crisis. We've seen declining revenues, business closure, job loss, and less tax revenue as well. And we'll see that moving forward. As part of the yearbook, we collect basic data on the macroeconomies of all of these countries. And as we've been doing that across all of the regions, we've seen this frightening trend that we're well aware of declining economic growth. It's estimated that economic activity in African economies will contract by 1.4% this year, some of them by contracting by nearly 8%, which of course will imply incredible job losses and also increased challenges with affordability around housing. as more households are pushed into poverty. And I think what this also means from a policy perspective and a budgeting perspective is that governments have had to redirect their spending. In a number of cases, we've seen funding move from housing to priorities around public health for obvious reasons. But now, as we move out of the pandemic, hopefully, we need to start thinking about the long-term ways to improve our growth and our recovery. So the introductory essay that's at the beginning of the yearbook, which is a fantastic overview, it's authored by Kesia, and I really strongly advise taking a chance to read it. We'll be publishing it separately as well. That introductory essay sets out some really important ideas. And essentially it posits that housing needs to be central to African government strategy to address risk, to stimulate recovery, and to ensure resilience. So the first challenge in addressing risk is to look at the situation that households have been put into, recognizing that good housing drives access to basic services and affects our health and well-being. And that was the theme and the evidence that came from David Dvorkin as well in the US. So we've seen the importance of housing around the world as a center for our health, for our well-being, for our economic livelihoods as households. And of course, with lockdown, the house becomes the center. And if the house is not safe, then lockdown is not a safe experience either. The second challenge that we have in front of us across the world, and certainly in Africa, is to stimulate economic recovery. And certainly within South Africa, that's the main focus right now, is what do we do with the economy? And the argument that we're putting forward in the yearbook overview essay, and that comes out in each of the profiles, is that construction, maintenance, and the transactions on houses, the buying and selling of houses, can contribute substantially to economic growth. So not only does housing serve as shelter, but actually investment in housing can be one of the ways that we get out of this slump due to COVID. Governments should seek to champion affordable housing as a key part of their economic recovery. That we don't just do it for the social aspect and the shelter components, but we do it because of its contribution to economic growth. And we're going to have a panel tomorrow, a presentation by David Gardner, on the connection between housing and the economy. And he'll present some research that CAF has been doing exactly on this. I would encourage you to take part in that session. It's first thing in the morning. And then the third challenge is around building resilience as we look forward. So as we build back after COVID, we need to think about climate change, think about public health, the connections between our houses and our health, and also recognize that the performance of the housing asset is critical to a household's ability to withstand shocks to their budgets. Okay. And here there's also a role for land regularization and tenure security efforts that strengthens household security. So those are some of the themes that come out in the introductory essay. And I think what the yearbook does is it provides information for each country in Africa to assess where those opportunities and challenges are in order to address risk, stimulate recovery, and to ensure resilience as we build back. So a key thing about the yearbook is that it's part of a much larger effort by CAF to promote a data agenda for Africa. We've been speaking about data yesterday and today, and the importance of data as actually an element of the market infrastructure. If we don't have clear information about risks, then investment goes elsewhere. We need to understand the situation so that we can price properly for risk and increase investment in affordable housing. And the yearbook is a key effort of CAF to build that market infrastructure of data. So what we do is that not only do the yearbook authors write the text, they also have a yearbook survey, which is essentially a questionnaire of about 33 indicators that we need them to research on the ground. So things like the price of the cheapest newly built house in an urban area in their country. So the yearbook authors go door to door. This year, of course, that was a challenge. And they research that information on the ground from various organizations, phone interviews, networks, etc. In addition, CAF collects a whole set of data from international data sources, and the result is an integrated database of about 80 headline indicators that we now have for each African country, which is a tremendous data asset. What you see on the screen here is an infographic that we have for each of the regions in the yearbook that gives an overview of some of the key housing finance indicators. So there's key information on mortgage lending, on microfinance lending, some of the World Bank doing business indicators we pull in, and then there's also other key flagship indicators. One of the indicators that CAF has been collecting for quite a while is the cost of the cheapest newly built house that is built by a private sector developer in the country. Okay, this is a unique indicator to CAF, and what it is it's a simple way to try to understand what's happening in the market, and essentially how down market private developers have been able to go in their construction of new homes. When we collected this information for this year, we found that the cheapest newly built house was the same one that we found last year. It's a house that's 32 square meters, built on the outskirts of Abuja by the Millard Fuller Foundation. And it's priced at about $8,000 US. Okay. That was the price last year, but no further houses have been built this year. So you can see that's the lowest. In most countries in Africa, the price of that cheapest newly built house sits between about $20,000 to $40,000 US. And in some places it goes higher. Of course, these are indicative statistics. We ask our in-country authors to tell us what the cheapest house is available on the market. This indicator doesn't say anything about the number of those houses that have been built and their availability, but it is a rough signal to us about what's happening in those markets. Yet, even when we talk about the cheapest newly built house, that house is often unaffordable to the majority of households in Africa. And what you have in front of you is a map that shows the price of the percent of urban households who can afford the cheapest newly built house. We also track the cost of a bag of cement as another CAF indicator to look at what's happening in the market. And of course, that's particularly important in the process of incremental building, as households slowly build onto their homes as they go along and as they are able to collect more funds. So looking forward, as we go into 2021, I would just want to highlight by way of conclusion that I think one of the unique things about the yearbook is our focus on the lower end of the market. There are other publications that are out in the sector that do reviews of property markets in Africa, but what makes this publication unique is that we focus on affordable housing. So we give an overview of the property markets, we give an overview of housing and housing delivery in the country, but we really hone in on the lower end of the market and access by poorer households to housing. It's the only publication of this nature in Africa, and that's what makes us extremely proud of this document. And in the context of COVID-19, I think it provides a really important source of market intelligence to how we can rebuild and grow coming out of this epidemic. Just to note as well that the challenges of producing this yearbook this year, of course, were all the more difficult because of COVID. And just to acknowledge that there were authors that were unable to continue because of deaths in their family. There were those that were challenged in their research because of extensive quarantine periods. And of course, the research was all the more difficult because it's difficult to go knock door to door and to make visits. So it was an incredibly challenging year to go through this intensive collaborative process. So I really want to take a hat off to all of the yearbook authors who participated and persisted in this really uncertain environment. So that being said, special thanks to our team of authors. And this is an incredible list. It's a diverse list that spreads across the continent. As I said, some of these people have been with us a couple of years, some were new to this process, but they went through a rigorous editing process, and we really appreciate their dedication and their enthusiasm to take part in this yearbook this year. And I also need to acknowledge our wider team who absolutely make this happen. The English yearbook is edited by myself and my partner in crime, Susan Carey. who I could not have done it without this year. She's absolutely vital. The French edition is edited by our Francophone program manager, Olivier. We also had a team of external editors who strengthened the quality of the profiles immensely. We had a team of translators to work on both the Portuguese and the French. And then our CAF team in-house stepped in and did research in crisis situations when particular profiles fell through. And they also filled in lots of holes and did lots of editing. It's an intensive process, and I'm grateful for their contribution. We also had various friends of CAF who stepped in and helped us with questions and numbers and answers. And then we have a dedicated team to assist us with the copy editing and a printer as well, June, who's been fantastic. So I want to thank all of you because, as I said, I think what makes this document unique is that it's not a single voice. It's a voice of close to 50 different housing experts from across the continent. And that makes it truly unique and a fantastic contribution to the sector. Thank you, Kezia.
Thank you so much, Alison. And I hope that you now quickly go scan the chat. It's lovely. There's so many people who've been writing, and we've got a number of authors present and so on. I want to put one screen up just now to emphasize one aspect that I've been really very excited about is just how many organizations have been participating in our in producing this publication from a sponsorship perspective. And I've been quite astonished how much support that we've gotten for the publication. So I'm sharing it right now, just so you can see that these are at the back of the book. Here's the book. Alison, you haven't even held it in your hands yet.
No, I haven't.
So here it is.
Beautiful.
And at the very back are all of the organizations who provided sponsorship by placing an advert at the back of our placing an advert in the yearbook itself. Of course, the gold sponsors were those that placed a full page advert. And so when you read this book, please make sure that you flip to the very back or scroll, I suppose, to the very back of it, because there are the adverts of organizations that they are participating in the affordable housing sector. And it's a critical part of our ability to produce this publication is the revenue that we've generated from the advertising. So these organizations that are listed here are those that provided us, that took out a full page ad and funded that part of the yearbook. So we are very grateful for your support. We would love that to grow. I sort of feel like if we have all of these logos on the back, it's like it belongs to all of us, you know. Everybody's put something into it, and it really becomes a representation of affordable housing on the continent, and that's really our goal. So congratulations, Alison and Susan and Olivier as editors of this mammoth effort and making it happen. Alison for driving the whole process and holding all of us to account, and for giving us when we didn't meet our deadlines within the hour, but holding us tight to them. I'm really very grateful and very proud of this.